Alright, let's do this dance one more time. 5 good covers. I have handpicked a selection of 5 comic books from my collection that have covers that are good or quite good. And now I am going to show you which ones they are. Then I am going to tell you about the most disgusting man who exists that I encountered at hospital in 2023. There is a theme running through these. I realised that it worked with the story. The theme will become obvious. The hand that shook the world. This is Justice League of America 101 and one of the annual Justice League and Justice Society of Superheroes team-ups. I think one of the better ones if I remember. And I'll be honest, there is enough torn off at the corner that I feel I shouldn't have included this. New Defenders 127. It's Assistant Editor's Month. Robert the subscriber just creamed in his pants. I have been sitting on this theme for years. Maybe not these exact 5 covers, but it is a well-worn idea for cover images. This cover has nearly always been included with that idea in my mind. I almost had this in a covers video on its own accord. Justice League International 11 by Keith Magoo. And you wouldn't be wrong to think that this is almost an uncredited homage to that other Justice League cover. The individual similarities are substantial. Another thing I like about covers videos is that it is an excuse to get out some issues and both get a feel for if anyone wants me to review them, or in the case of something like that New Defenders issue, it's something that I could read when I've got a bit of free time later on. Thanius issue 5. Galactus Man, Alden, Thanius. The thing is, as repetitive and redone as the cover idea is, there are some that manage to carry greater idea to them than simply protagonist versus bigger threat. In this case, it also speaks to the cosmic hierarchy. Galactus Man is in a completely different league to Thanius. I have mixed feelings about this story, but I like the cover for sure. Oh god, I saw some outrageous AI artwork that was trying to depict the Marvel cosmic hierarchy. There was fucking loads of them. There was like a comic with Beyond a Man, and even the text in the comic was written by AI. It was fucking terrible. You don't have to come up with an excuse for me to include a Wallace Gromit New Thunderbirds cover. Like the last one, this one maybe has a little bit more to it. This is Baron Hydra's hands. And Hydra are in the process of attacking and invading New York, so it is symbolic of that. It's also, he is wearing the Santa Claw, a weapon that he is known for. So the cover is also less about him or only symbolic of Hydra's attacks, but it can also be seen as a cover about the Santa Claus power itself. Santa Claus. That was weird. I didn't realise until I just said it that it sounds like Santa Claus. Here we go. It is story time. Now, if you like some of the more innocent and family fucking friendly stuff that I do, like when I call Iron Fist, this probably is too hardcore and disgusting for you. But know that I had to experience this, so if anyone is scarred, it is me. I don't need much backstory. I had serious health troubles in 2023. My spleen had ruptured at an undetermined time and had gone untreated for months, possibly even years. And during that time, I got progressively more ill and my body started failing. You can even see me in videos complaining about how I feel like I am never not sick. You know what? Most people don't even know what a spleen really does, so none of this backstory is necessary, but I do have a helpful piece of advice for people. The spleen creates white blood cells and it filters out the red blood cells. It's like the battery that powers your immune system. Without a spleen, or without one that is working, you're basically without an immune system. My spleen had ruptured and filled up with infected blood, to the degree that it took 6 months to properly drain it all. One of the big things is that your body tries hard to compensate. It can't, but it tries hard. And as you get worse and worse and you're catching bugs and colds at the drop of a hat, your body is working overtime. And the result was that in May 2023, I had a transient ischemic attack while editing a video. TIA is like a mini stroke. That is the way it was described to me. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know about it either. I recognised all the signs as being stroke symptoms. I believed at the time I was having a stroke, but I just didn't bother phoning for an ambulance. The most acknowledgement it ever got from me was in the very next video I recorded. I started by saying, I think I might have been having a stroke yesterday. I didn't find out what really happened or even focus on that until I was hospitalised a month and a bit later. Here is my helpful tip though. My sage medical advice. Actually, I have 2 very good tips for people. The first is that you cannot really feel pain in your spleen. So if you have something wrong with your spleen, it's not the easiest thing to detect. You can feel discomfort and you can feel some sensation, but nearly all the pain is felt in your shoulder. They call it referred pain. It was my left shoulder. It hurt for a long time, months, before I was aware anything was wrong with my spleen. I went to the doctors about it and it was misdiagnosed as a frozen shoulder, but no, it was my spleen. Speaking of doctors, before that, I went months earlier about my tummy feeling funny, and they wrote it off as IBS. They didn't look into it at all, just assumed it was IBS and gave us some laxatives. My other tip, this is for men, which is 100% of my audience demographic. This is something you need to do. You might think this is a kink or a fetish thing, but no, it's common sense. Get a catheter put in when you're still mentally sound. The amount of hard people in the hospital with catheters who cannot wrap their heads around how it works or how it feels. Trust me, get one put in next time you have to stay at the hospital. Lie and say that you're having problems with holding your pissing. You need to have one in so you can come to terms with what it feels like rather than get your first catheter at the age of 84 and spend all night tugging on it trying to pull it out or thinking that you're pissing yourself 24/7. I've nearly had more catheters put in than I have had sexual partners. But in 2020, not because I pissed myself, I was bedbound. I have been in intensive care twice. They didn't want you walking around if you've done your spleen in. Catheters are horrible. I get them removed first chance I can. But I know when I am hard, I'm not going to be bamboozled by a catheter. This gets us to the story though. In hospital, I was put in a room with 3 other patients, a medical bay, 4 beds. They have private rooms too, but I go mental in them because of lack of stimulation. Towards the end of my stay, there was this man in one of the other beds in the same room as me, another patient. He was what I have dubbed the most disgusting person in the world. I do not believe a more disgusting person exists. I'm not sure what he was even in for, but we will discuss at least one of his ailments. He had, well, first I should say, he looked like a lizard. A fat, hard lizard. He looked like... Have you ever seen James Bond, Quantum of Solace? He looked like the bad guy from that, but fatter and with a horseshoe haircut. And then we get to the outwardly disgusting stuff. I'm not having a go here, but... well, I am. This cretin deserves it. Don't feel any sympathy or empathy for this man. One of his legs, starting at the calf, jet black, diabetes, pitch black as it can be. And on the end of the foot, he only had 2 toes, both black. Everything from about the boot top downwards was pure black. The blackest of black. None more black. That wasn't pleasant to see. But it pales in comparison to the thing that made him so repulsive. He was always naked. He was always getting his cock out. He would be lying there in bed with his cock out. Sometimes he'd be wearing a t-shirt, but his cock would still be out. And this is a shared room. There are 3 other people in this room, and there's doctors and nurses coming in and out all the time. And there are curtains that you can pull over your little corner to give yourself privacy. And he wouldn't do that. He would lie there, naked or half naked, with his cock out. And then, the other thing is 90% of the time, he would start wanking. Properly fucking horrible. And he'd do it during visiting hours too. When, like, the other 2 people in the room would have their wives or their mothers or their kids come to visit them in hospital. There'd be this horrible hard man in the corner with a black foot wanking off in full view of everyone. Now, I know what you're thinking and how it calls the legitimacy of this story into question, and that is being addressed next. I complained in excess of 20 times about it to nurses and staff. They would usually go over and they would close his curtains for him, but then like 3 minutes later he would get up and open them again. I want to also say NHS nurses, give them love. They have to put up with this. They cannot do anything about things like that, because then he could turn around and file a complaint about being mistreated or whatever. Come to think of it, that is outright a crime. That guy, it is at a minimum indecent exposure. But he could probably get that tossed out as a byproduct of being hospitalised. But not even female nurses, male nurses, other patients, the visitors, nobody should have to see that. Nurses are powerless to deal with patients that are a problem like that, though. All they can do is maybe get someone higher up to try and handle it, but then that person ends up facing the same roadblocks. After, I think it was at the end of the second day he had been there, I developed my own solution. I realised I had to close my own curtains, which is unhinged. It should never be the case that patients are forced to block themselves off from fucking offensive people. It should be the offenders who are hidden away. It's not nice lying in those beds with curtains drawn around it. It feels claustrophobic. And again, there's nothing for mental stimulation. After about 2 hours of not having to see his horrible penis, he came walking over to my bed. He entered through the curtains, completely head to toe naked except for socks, holding his cock and masturbating in this really tight environment created by the curtains. And he said, "Why are you hiding away? Are you a student?" I should also say, I had already, weeks previously, gotten into trouble for telling a nasty racist 96-year-old man to hurry up and die. So I knew that if I told this bloke that I hope his dick rots off like his toes did, that I would be the one punished instead of the gross pervert. He was always watching the telly too. There was one telly in the room and he was always commandeering it, and he would be watching the fucking most shit things ever. Rising Damp, he was always watching that. He would watch it all night. Another time, I complained when he was watching that Wesley Snipes hijacking movie at 3 a.m. He had that on the TV at like high volume. He had it at 50, and like 16 is the normal. He had it at 50. The nurse came in and turned it off and told him off, and then 3 minutes after she left, he turned it back on. And so I went back and said, "Well, he's turned it back on." And she went, "Sorry, there's nothing more I can do." And throughout this whole story, he was wanking off. He was wanking off to fucking Wesley Snipes and Rising Damp. He was, no word of a lie, he was always playing with his cock. I never noticed him ejaculating or having an orgasm. I mean, I wasn't looking at it. I wasn't watching intensely. But when there's a disgusting hard man in the same room with his cock out who keeps jerking it, it stands to reason that occasionally, unfortunately, it's going to be seen. Oh god, yeah, during dinner as well, that was worst. We'd have to eat fucking cold sausage and mash, and then he would be there fucking dangling his todger. Fucking, oh. I was discharged before. Oh fuck me! Oh god, that's a word that takes on a horrible new life in this situation. Discharged. They let me out of hospital. But the good news is that my dad experienced this bloke, and we actually for once agreed that summer was the most repugnant thing ever. I know it is not a funny story, it's not even an entertaining story, it's just a story that makes you feel sick. But I had to spend a few days putting up with it. I hope he is dead now. That 96-year-old definitely is. He had 5 months to live, apparently. But I hope they are both dead now. 7 thumbs up even sounds gross after talking about him. This cover is kind of like... It's like a point of view of my nemesis wanking with his famous purple dick. Horrid video, this one. Absolutely horrid.